Hello my beautiful friends and welcome back to our channel, and today's video on apologizing. So I'm bringing this one to you from a very personal experience I've just had, which revealed some more work that I want to do on myself and in the relationships that I have in my life, and that is on apologizing. Now, this really speaks to the nature of thought work, and that this is a constant iterative process for all of us. We're constantly showing up in new and different situations with different levels of challenge and different interacting factors. And we always want to be watching our mind to see, am I showing up in my integrity in this situation? And thought work gives you the tools and structure to help you do this. So let me paint the picture for you to show you how this work revealed itself to me. So the situation was, I was in a disagreement with another person. They said something that initially I realized the first feeling was defensive. And then after defensive, I felt offended. And from defensive and offended, I showed up in a way that made them defensive and offended as well, that they didn't appreciate. So that's one thing to consider as a potential problem here. This other person who I care about, whom I love, did not appreciate my response the way that I showed up. And the other consideration is that I didn't like the way that I showed up either. It wasn't in my integrity in that moment to respond how I responded. Now, this actual conversation, how I showed up in the conversation, isn't actually what we're going to talk about today. But I want to talk about what happened when the thought came to mind after me reviewing that situation myself, that I wanted to apologize. So we'll fast forward through today with me reviewing the situation and deciding that I wanted to apologize. And the important point that I want to zoom in on today is, when I went to apologize, the resistance that I met. And that came from this thought error that I hadn't seen before this moment, which was, if I apologize, they're gonna think that I'm condoning their behavior. I'm gonna perpetuate their behavior in this situation. I'm admitting that the only problem, or I'm suggesting that the only problem in this situation was how I showed up, and therefore their responsibility and any need for them to change or request for them to change is relinquished from this situation. And that all those thoughts and cousins of those thoughts made me not want to execute on my apology. And I just want you guys to review if this comes up for you in your life at all. I want to analyze those thoughts that were holding me back from apologizing, because I already knew, I had decided that apologizing was the thing that I wanted to do for myself in that moment. That was the thing that was most in my integrity. Not only did I want to apologize because I genuinely was sorry about how I reacted, but I also wanted this other person to know that that's not acceptable behavior for me either. My behavior, that's not aligned with my values. That's not aligned with what I want. And to me, I am holding myself accountable to not perpetuating, repeating behaviors like that. So these thoughts about how my apology might be interpreted and how this might affect the other person's behavior was getting in the way again of me acting how I wanted to act in line with my integrity. And here's the truth. Here is how I decided to apologize anyway. 1, how I show up in the world is entirely my responsibility, and it's entirely my choice. I want to act aligned with my values. I want to be in integrity in my behavior, because that's what does myself the most justice. And I will struggle and suffer if I don't act in line with my values. That will affect me and bring up more thoughts and emotions and probably subsequent behaviors that I don't like that I will then have to deal with, right? I'm shooting my own self in the foot by not showing up and apologizing. So that's one thing. Now, the other side of this equation to consider is all those thoughts about things that are out of my control, i.e., how they interpret the apology, what they make the apology mean. One approach to this is I can, within the apology, or probably more appropriately or effectively in due course, raise my requests of how I want this to be interpreted and what it does and doesn't mean, and maybe what I want to request changes in the future. But the other side of this is simply recognizing that this person can and will interpret it however they like, right? And that's not something that I have control over. It doesn't even matter how explicit I am with how I tell people to interpret what I do, they're still going to interpret it in their own way. I want to let people do what they will with the information in the world, including my behavior and what I say. How generous of me to allow other people to think what they're going to think. The truth is that it's going to happen anyway. And to try and control something that you can't control will drive you crazy, and it will make you act weird. And more to the point in this situation, trying to control something I can't control potentially threatens me showing up how I want to show up. It potentially hurts me and holds me back. So just recognizing that those things are not in my control, and knowing that fact, deciding what I want to do from there, help me to move forwards and actually show up how I wanted to show up. So my beautiful friends, I hope you continue to stay curious about how you show up in the world, and you're constantly checking to see if you're in alignment with what is in your value set. You always have control over how you show up. And even if a moment has passed and you didn't show up how you wanted to because you weren't aware, you weren't mindful in the moment of your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, you responded impulsively, you now have an opportunity to show up and rectify that or respond to that in a certain way. And that might mean apologizing. For me, it was in line with my values to apologize. And I hope to continue to be the kind of person who apologizes when I don't show up the way that I want to, and that affects another person, when I'm not really taking responsibility for myself and being mindful of why I'm doing what I'm doing with or to another person. You will never be done. And to me, that is half of the fun and what makes life so rich and interesting. If you know that you want some structure and help and even a community around doing this kind of work on and for yourself, then my beautiful friends, jump on my coaching waitlist. The link is below. My one-on-one coaching practice is currently full, but if you get on that list, you'll be the first to hear about consult opportunities that come up, so you can jump on a free call with me and work out even how coaching can help you, but also the new group coaching opportunities that are coming out that's going to make coaching more accessible to so many more people and help us benefit from that community and watching other people get coached as well as getting coached yourself. My beautiful friends, I hope you've enjoyed this one. Let me know down below, and I'll see you in my next one.